All right, so I just made a video, so I'm gonna hang on to this one for a couple days before I put it up because I want people thinking like, boy, this guy's stupid face is all over Facebook lately. But I promised some of my acting buddies I'd put this up. Um, so what I just and this would be kind of fun. It's what I really learned in acting class, and a lot of what I do in my current job now, I learned a lot uh, of it by being in acting class, believe it or not. So just to preface this story, I'm going to tell you um, about Laurel Vouvray. Hey, Laurel. Um, I've had a lot of great acting coaches, and a lot of them have been really tough with me and been really tough with other students. But here's one with Laurel. And she'll probably remember this, or maybe not. I don't know. She's probably done this to a lot of people. Anyway, it was probably the second or third class that I had with her, and I was in the middle of some monologue, or maybe it was a scene or something like that. But right in the middle, I just hear this, okay, all right, stop, stop, stop. I'm like, I'm right in the middle of a scene, what? And I can feel my face getting all red and flushed. And she's like, okay, all right, I see what's going on. Okay, all right. She goes, you're the guy that wants everybody to like him. And I was like, nah. Well, no, no. She goes, yes, yes, yes. That's what you do. You want everybody to like you. And I could just feel my whole body get red and hot and flushed, and I'm standing there in front of the whole class, embarrassed and naked and exposed, and just kind of like, no, no, Laurel, I'm not. No. She goes, yes, yeah, yes. That's what you do. It was hilarious. Oh God, it was so awesome. Not in that moment. That moment, it was terrifying. It was crushing. Um, but looking back, it was awesome because it was probably like my second class, and I'm sure probably a lot of my other acting coaches saw it, but they didn't. If they did, they didn't call me on it. But Laurel called me on it right in front of everybody, and she was doing it because she wanted to make me a better actor. And after that, the only parts she gave me uh, were asshole parts, where I was like an unredeemable asshole. There was no way I could make the character nice or charming like I would do in all my other scenes. Because she's like, you can do the nice guy thing. You can do that. You can be charming and witty and funny or whatever. It's like, but she's like, but you want to be a better actor? Play that part. That's the part you can't play. I couldn't even act like an asshole. Um, anyway, she crushed me. That was devastating, Laurel, but it was completely necessary, and God bless you. I thank you for it. Um, you are making me a better actor. So here's a couple of things I learned in acting class, and I realized the other day that this isn't even all of them. I started writing them down. I'm like, shit, I could keep going, but I'll keep it to a short list. I got just a short, tiny list here of things I learned in acting class. One is to, or well, the reason I'm doing this, it's kind of not, it's kind of along the same lines. I don't like putting up these videos. I really don't. Um, it's taken me a while to put this up. I've been like, oh, I should put that up, but I've been hem and hawing about it for weeks. So part of the point of this is just to tell your story, share your story with other people. You'd be surprised at the effect that it has on people. That's why we share stories with each other. Um, yeah, I won't go into that again. I could keep going with this. Tell your story, share your story with people, put it out there, and let the chips fall where they may. What's this one? So what do you learn in acting class? Ironically, is you go to acting class to learn how to not act, to drop the act, to just be, to have an authentic expression, because we're always acting. in one form or another, you're acting really all the time. And when you're in front of your boss, you're oh, I'm this employer. Maybe you're acting like the boss in front of your employees, or when you're with your mother, you're acting like a son, or when you're with your girlfriend, you're acting the way a boyfriend is supposed to act, or whatever like that, and around your boys. Anyway, you're always acting. You're playing a character, whether you know it or not. And hopefully, if you take the acting analogy a little bit farther, you're recognizing that you're a character a lot of times, and as best you can, you're always trying to kind of take that mask off and let a little bit of yourself um, to shine through. You're trying to take off that mask and show yourself to people, to expose yourself to people. Um, I learned a lot of shadow work. Again, that the example I used with Laurel right at the beginning. You you can find out a lot about yourself, what makes you uncomfortable in a scene, what kind of story you're trying to tell, but you can use acting to serve you in the sense if you're looking to explore the shadow side of yourself, or the shadow side of humanity, and kind of get a grip on what that's like. There's a really great movie that explains it really well. It's a documentary. It's called Special Thanks to Roy London. If you're interested in acting, or my acting buddies, if you haven't watched Special Thanks to Roy London, go watch that one. It's a great flick. It's a great documentary, and there's a lot in it about acting that'll kind of inspire you. Um, Shadow work. I learned a lot about shadow work actually in acting class. Um, there's a finite list of things that go wrong in a scene. If you're watching a scene and it's really hot and on fire, and all of a sudden the actors just lose you. In my experience, it's not a big list of things that happen in that moment. Whether it's the character forgot what he was trying to get from the other person, or he forgot that it was urgent, or whatever it was. I mean, I don't know how many things there are, but it's not a big list, and it's the same thing in life. It's whenever I've sat down and talked with people and see what's really bugging them, it's usually one of only maybe 10 things, a game that they're playing with themselves or with other people, where they think something is, their condition is everybody else's fault, or they think it's all their fault, or whatever like that. But it's not a big list of the games we play with ourselves and with other people that are causing us problems. It's always kind of funny, we do these things and they play out in an infinite amount of ways, but the list itself isn't that big. I mean, again, the way they play themselves out is, I learned to watch people, like really watch people and listen to people. I mean, really, like, it's funny. Like, whenever I talk to people now, I'm watching them the way I watch an actor in a scene. I'm watching them to see, like, what is this scene about? What is it? Even if it's just a conversation with me, it's almost like an acting. It's just like, what are we really talking about here? Um, people are giving you information all the time. What they're saying, what they're not saying, how they're saying it, their behaviors, everything. If you just sit there and watch people, they'll tell you a lot about what's going on with them. You're more interesting. There's that, every acting coach tells people this. You are more interesting than 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 any character you could hope to imitate. In other words, when you're doing a scene, you can't do a scene the way Robert De Niro would do a scene, or the way Meryl Streep would do a scene. You have to do the scene the way you do it, because you're more interesting. You faking, you pretending to be like somebody else is not nearly as interesting as the actual person you are. You're far more interesting than you give yourself credit for. And you have to bring that into whatever it is that you're doing, especially acting. You just have to do it. And you have to do it in life. You know, you have to be who you are. You have to recognize your gifts, and you have to bring them out. And you have to let people see that. You know, because really, at the end of the day, you want people to like you for you, not for some character that you think they'll like better. You know, just, yeah, I don't know. Again, I could go really deep, and I kind of really want to, but I'm gonna get through this list because I don't want this to be like a 40-minute video. Make choices. Be bold and make mistakes. You know, when you get a scene, there's always something where you got to make a choice. You don't know whether it's the right choice or not, and sometimes it's a mistake. But is it really a mistake? No, it could be the best, you know, mistake ever. But yeah, if you just sit there and ho hum your lines and you don't put any chips on the table, that's fine. It's not interesting. Connect to your story. One of the things I really loved doing is I loved when I would have some acting buddies that would come up to me sometimes and be like, I don't know what the story's about. And I would love sitting down and like looking at a story and trying to find like the emotional connection that's there, you know. And sometimes it's funny because I think sometimes people feel emotionally disconnected from their own lives, you know, and you have to kind of help them find what it is that they're missing, what they're not connecting to, what they're overlooking, you know. Sometimes because it's all right there, you know, and sometimes they skip the most important part of the story. And there's a bigger story, you know. You're the hero. There's the hero's journey. There's a bigger story that's going on. You know, there's that great saying, life can only be understood in reverse, but it has to be lived forwardly or something like that. But yeah, there's a bigger story that's going on. It's like, it's not just what's going on in the scene, but there is a bigger story of whatever it is that's going on. And all these individual little scenes are serving the bigger story. And you got to figure out, you know, sometimes you have to be able to see the bigger story, you know. And again, that will kind of go into the next one, I guess. Groundhog Day is great for that, you know. I don't know. Out at our center, I show that movie all the time. If nobody had ever seen Groundhog Day, God, that movie's deep. Just on a personal level, I'm sure you guys have all seen it. Whatever. I'm not going to go too much into that. But Groundhog Day, oh, it's all in there, man. That movie is deep. It goes deep. Love the process. You know, man, sometimes I just wouldn't want to go to acting class because I just wouldn't be feeling it, but I had to learn how to love that uncomfortableness of going into the class even when I didn't feel up to it, or I didn't feel inspired, I felt underprepared, or I just didn't feel like I had to handle anything. I didn't feel good enough, I didn't feel worthy enough, I felt like I was the worst one in there or whatever like that. But you kind of, or performing the scene and having it get trashed and just having it not work, you have to kind of learn to love that, you know. I realize, and again, you know, part of the reason why I'm doing this video, I didn't realize till years later that what I was doing in acting class and what I loved doing in acting class was I used it as a lab, you know. In London, the Roy London documentary talks about this. I did the same thing. I kind of was using it as a lab to try to figure out life, you know. It's probably one of the reasons I didn't stick with it, because I think it was a stepping stone to something else. It's probably why I never became as fanatical, and I didn't work as hard as some others, because I think I was trying to figure something else out. Maybe that's a cop-out. Who knows? Could be. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Um, but but I did love acting class. Uh, it was almost every single class was something would happen that made me go, this is why I love doing this. So yeah, I used it as a lab, and you're writing your own story. That's kind of uh, maybe not necessarily what I learned in acting class per se, but that I came to find out that I use every day of my life now is realizing that I'm writing the story of my life. I'm the main character and I'm the hero, and I'm gonna write myself a damn good story, one that I can be proud of, one that I can, when I get to the end of my life, I'm gonna go, I wrote a good story. I wrote a good story. Um, and of course, another thing I learned in acting class is let go. Let go of the control that you're trying to exert over the way the scene goes. You're trying to, it has to be this way. Some of the best things happen when you just let go. You gotta let it breathe. You gotta let it flow. So anyway, I told a couple people I'd tag them in this, and I'm going to tag all my acting coaches. To all my acting coaches, really to all everybody that I ever did an acting class with, all the directors that I ever worked with. Shout out to Yaki Smith, because he let me a couple times. He invited me into his directing classes at UT, and do scenes with aspiring directors and talk to them. And man, I loved doing that. I don't know if I ever told you, Yaki, how much I loved being in those classes with you, and talking to those young idealistic directing students who had no idea what they were getting into. Some of them did, but no. Thank you, everybody that ever let me be a part of that experience with them. And I hope you got something out of this. And I'd love to see some of yours. And if you make one about what you learned in acting class, tag me, please. Thanks.